My relationship with Washington College is I'm a 1972 graduate of the college. I met my wife at the college, who's a 1974 graduate of the college. I am a parent. My daughter attended Washington College, though she did not graduate. And I have been on the Board of Visitors and Governors for 21 years, the last 6 as chair of the board.
So I am a 1986 graduate of Washington College. I met my wife here as well, and she is also a 1986 graduate from Washington College. Through the years, maintained connection. Annapolis is home, so Chestertown has never been very far. Have been made the trek to the Eastern Shore numerous times. In the 2011, I was on the President's Leadership Council, ultimately chaired that for 2 years, and joined the board in 2017. Since that point in time, have been involved in finance, trustee, and then vice chair of the board.
I think in 2003, which was at the back end of the tech bubble, it wasn't so much thinking about the challenges that we're facing today as much as thinking about what was small going to look like in 2020, 2025. And could we, as an institution of 1,100, actually be successful in terms of meeting the needs of our students, as compared, did we need to think about a different size in order to support all of the programs that we felt may be necessary in order to attract students to the Eastern Shore. When I took over as board chair in 2018, that was at the exact same time that the demographics began to impact the college in terms of declining enrollments. It was at that time that we began to experience some of the financial stress that was impacting our ability to make strategic investments. And so it really was a time where, working with the board, we had to think about what was the way forward in order to achieve a stable operating environment, and what leadership was required in order to do that. And this was at the same time that there were concerns about the governance of the board and of the college, and the role of the board in that governance model. So for me, I was very much cognizant of the fact that as a board we did not run the college, but as a board we had a fiduciary responsibility to ensure the long-term sustainability of that college. And so my primary responsibility in that respect was really to work with the board in order to identify what were the most appropriate strategies to protect the financial integrity of the college, and to then work with the president and the provost in order to try to implement those strategies to address some of the challenges that we were facing.
And then we had COVID. Right?
And then we had COVID. I think, right, I mean, you take yourself back to that time, and no one knew what to expect and what to do. And we had to learn very quickly what we could do, how best to teach students in a hybrid fashion, what was the best decision to make for the students, for the faculty, for the staff, for the town, and the best way to do that. Everyone was learning at that time. We learned some very good things as a result of that, and I think we've been able to come out the other side of all of this better, but we also understand how to be prepared.
I think it was very important through this period to get people to understand that many of the challenges that we were facing were being faced by many other small liberal arts colleges, and to understand that that just because we were experiencing the challenge didn't necessarily mean that we were doing something necessarily inherently wrong, but that there were other factors that were playing on us that we had to adapt to, we had to adjust to, we had to think differently about. And so I think it's very important in this arc of the period that we're talking about to actually understand that there were many institutions that we are now beginning to see experience many of the same challenges that we did, are not coming out of it in the same way that we are coming out of it, and that are in fact even more challenged because they didn't make some of the tough decisions that we made, or willing to make some investments that we were willing to make because we had a long-term view for the institution.
Where do you feel the true north is for Washington College going forward?
Washington College is at its core a liberal arts institution, and it always will be. I look back at my time here and how Washington College helped shape me to be successful in my career. The critical thinking, the communication skills, the ability to sit down in a room with the president of the college, with President Cater at Hinson Ringgold, understand how to operate in those situations. Just all of the things that Washington College taught me, how to write, and it did all of that. And at its core, that was the liberal arts education. And so Washington College will always be a liberal arts institution. Now, we also need to understand that there are changes happening in the world and in the students that are coming and what they're looking for. But a business major or a political science major or a science major still benefits from a philosophy class and the foundation that brings, or an environmental science class and discipline for a political science person if they're going to go make policy about the environment.
I don't think anybody will doubt the last 10 years have been difficult, and we've been challenged. But I think in the end, nobody ever suggested that the work that we were doing wasn't worth it. Nobody ever suggested that the value of a Washington College education didn't merit the investment of people's time, treasure, and talents in order to ensure that a Washington College education was available to future generations of students.
Steve was the leader that we needed when he stepped into the position as board chair. And over the last 6 years, Steve's leadership style, his experience in higher ed, his finance experience, his low-key demeanor, everything about Steve is the leader that we needed at the time, and he has done a fabulous job getting us from that point in 2018 to where we are today.
One thing that is abundantly clear these days is that boards are engaged in discussions about freedom of speech. We are going through a very interesting time on American campuses. That might be an understatement. But those things come up to the board level, right? I mean, what's been your experience in these matters?
You don't have enough time for my experience, because I go back to the University of Pennsylvania and some of the early freedom of speech issues that happened in the 1990s. But what I would say is the challenge is in the political environment that we're in today, some of those historical norms are being tested. And so what institutions like Washington College needs to do is it needs to sort of assess how our current set of expectations are being affected by what's happening in the external environment, and figure out ways not to lose the value of the role of a campus in creating safe opportunities for people to share their ideas and engage in discourse, but to figure out ways to allow that to happen where people feel safe, they feel respected. Mike Sisolsky understands that. He's created a campus-wide task force to look at those issues. They are going to report back with a set of recommendations. They will ultimately come to the board. And the board will have to engage in a conversation with Mike about what is this way to create an environment that we all feel is conducive to the kind of educational environment that we want to create at Washington College. And I offer this all because the work is not yet finished. We understand what the potential issues are that are out there that we need to deal with. We certainly, on the board, are no different than our campus community in terms of having different perspective, different points of view. But at the end, I think we all have a common belief that Washington College must be a place where people can feel safe and feel respected and feel that they have the opportunity to engage in these kinds of conversations, because that's how people learn. And that's the kind of environment that I think we're trying to sustain here in the future.
You know, when I started the SPY 15 years ago, the relationship between the town and the college was awful. I can't describe it any other way. They were just two different worlds coexisting barely. I mean, there have been challenges. You just went through one with the armory, but in general, it's like there's a much more interest and sympathy and understanding of the challenges that the college is going through, and there seems to be a greater sense of interaction with the community.
Well, I think that, you know, the town-gown relationships are so critical, right? It's a symbiotic relationship, right? We depend on each other, right? I mean, the town and the college exist together and need to work together and have a good relation, absolutely, for certain. The college understands that. And we're doing everything we can, right? We have several properties in town now that I think will be very beneficial to the economic development of Chestertown, be a draw for people to come. We're talking about the potential for the hotel at the Armory site, and then we also have the Dixon Valve facility that we're working to look to see what that becomes, right? We have an innovation space, we have a wellness center for the campus, but there's a lot more potential in that space that we can use. We were talking earlier about the college being the economic engine for Kent County and being able to contribute to that from a state perspective and a national perspective, to be able to bring ideas, to bring opportunities, to bring jobs, and train people to leave here and, you know, be successful.
I agree with everything that Rick just said. If you read the current literature today about the value of a liberal arts education and how it's being discounted in many circles, one of the responses to that condition is that the institutions need to take more of an interest in their local communities, more of an interest in their states, and demonstrate that the value add is what they bring to the broader environment, the broader community. So while the education will always remain valuable, that's almost like an insider's baseball game, as compared to when the college becomes more open to the local community and responsive to the local community. That becomes much easier then for the local community to understand the value proposition of the institution. And so this is going to be an ongoing conversation. Your question is actually spot on, because it's a very timely conversation for many institutions right now. And the literature in higher education is actually somewhat broad in regard to these types of things that institutions like ours need to pay more attention to.